Do you ever feel like this? Raina Telgemeier felt anxious as a kid. Learn how this famous author beat her fears. Don't miss these social emotional learning. It takes guts. As you read, when Raina was a kid, what advice did she get about dealing with her fear? Underline the text that tells you. If you like graphic novels, you probably know the name Raina Telgemeier. She's the author and illustrator of some of the nation's best-selling graphic novels. Her latest book is Guts, which tells about her childhood. When Raina was a kid, she worried a lot about getting sick and throwing up. Her fear turned into panic attacks. Her parents took her to a therapist for help. Guts is the story of how she learned to tackle her fear. Recently, Raina spoke with Scholastic kid reporter Amelia Poor. Here's part of their conversation. Amelia Poor. What inspired the book Guts? Raina Telgemeier. Guts is inspired by pretty much my whole life. I've had anxiety since I was a kid. It's something I've always lived with and never really knew how to talk to people about. I decided it was time to write a book about my anxiety and how I deal with it. AP. In Guts, your therapist tells you to try anyway. How has that advice helped you in your life? RT. A big part of my therapy was dealing with things I didn't want to do. She would say, just try. Foods that I didn't want to eat, she would say, just try them. What's the worst thing that could happen? The more I did those things, the better I felt. It was good for me to see that the world was not going to end. I think it also applies to writing Guts. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it, but I figured, why not try? Why not just start writing and see what happens? AP. You've also written other books about yourself, Smile and Sisters. Why do you write about your own life? RT. When I was a kid, I read books about real people's lives. Some were written 100 years before I was born. But I would think, wow, this character is just like me. So I know that reading a story about a character that you feel similar to helps you feel better. AP. If you could give advice to yourself as a kid, what would it be? RT. I'd want her to know she's not alone, even though that's how it felt. At least now I'm able to tell other kids that they're not alone. How to go from to. When Raina Telgemeier feels anxious, she uses this technique she learned as a kid to relax her body and mind. 1. Focus on your feet. Plant them on the ground and let them anchor you. 2. Breathe deeply. Focus on your ankles, then your knees, working your way up your body. Take deep breaths as you go. 3. Keep it going. After you get to your head, go all the way back down until you reach your toes. Raina says this exercise is just a starting point. If you're looking for ways to handle your feelings, it's important to talk to a trusted grown-up. Space science. A home in space. What's life like on a space station? Take an amazing tour with astronaut Christina Koch. Rumble! Roar! Those were the sounds of a rocket blasting off from Earth 20 years ago this month. 2 days later, that rocket had delivered the first people to live on the International Space Station, ISS. The ISS is a giant lab that orbits Earth. In the 2 decades since, space travelers from more than 19 countries have spent time on the ISS. They do experiments, including ones that will prepare astronauts for future missions to Mars. The ISS has grown from a few small rooms, called modules, to a space station the size of a football field. What's life like on the ISS? We asked Christina Koch. She returned home to Texas in February after spending 328 days in a row on the ISS, longer than any other woman. Spacewalking. Koch and Jessica Meir made history in October 2019. They became the first all-female team to go on a spacewalk outside the ISS. Astronauts can make repairs during spacewalks. Sleep tight. Gravity is much weaker in space. That means objects and people float. Astronauts zip themselves into sleeping bags strapped to the walls. That keeps them in place, but their arms still float. It's a lot of fun as long as you don't mind looking silly, Koch says. Get to work. Astronauts do experiments all day, like testing how different foods grow in space. Take a seat. Everything floats in space, so the ISS toilets use airflow to pull solid waste away from the astronauts and into plastic bags. For liquid waste, we use a little funnel, Koch explains. It all gets captured and recycled back into our drinking water. Floating food. The ISS doesn't have refrigerators. Astronauts eat a lot of freeze-dried foods that last for months. Sandwiches would float off plates, so most meals are mashed up and slurped from bags. The food is actually good, says Koch. Here's one sleep station right here. I'm going in right now. You can follow me if you want. So I'm inside. It's sort of like a little phone booth, but it's pretty comfy. I've got a sleeping bag right here that we sleep in, so we don't have sort of like a little bit of a cover, and we don't fly all over the place. But you can sleep in any orientation. I have it feeling like I'm standing up right now, but like you saw, I'm on the floor. But it doesn't matter if I turn over and I sleep upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down, so it really doesn't matter. The sleep station is also like a little office. We've got a computer in here. As you can see, we've got a couple little toys. I've got some books. I've got some clothes and other things that make it sort of like home. All right, come on back. There's more to show you.
is the bathroom, essentially. You get up in the morning, and we have a little kit, and it has all the essential things that you need, like your toothbrush and toothpaste and brush. See how much better the brush makes my hair look? I'm just joking. It still stands up straight. It doesn't matter where you are. It's always going to stand up straight while you're up in space. A lot of people ask about toothbrush and toothpaste. So, luckily enough, toothpaste, you can do it upside right this way, is sticky, and so it sticks to your toothbrush. No problem. I'll have some water come out. The water is pretty neat up in space. It'll stick to your toothbrush, and that's just by surface tension. And then you can drink it. This is our orbital outhouse right here. And of course, it serves for two functions. Number 2, right here. I'll show you. But you see it's pretty small, so you have to have pretty good aim, and you be ready to make sure things get let go the right direction. And it smells a little bit, so I'm closing it up. And that's, of course, for number 2. And this guy right here is for number 1. So they're sort of two slightly separate functions, but you can do a little, essentially both, by hanging on right here and doing number 1 and number 2. I might add it's color coded, so you really don't get it mixed up, which is nice. This is yellows for number 1. And did I mention both of these have a little bit of suction, so they should keep things going in the right direction. But like I said, sometimes things get a little out of control if you are out of control yourself flying around. So we have lots of protective stuff. And of course, you do have your privacy. There's a little door. And this is our kitchen. You might notice there's all sorts of foods here. It's like opening the refrigerator. You got all your different stuff that you want to have: drinks, meats, eggs, vegetables, cereals, bread, snacks, and that's a good place. That's where you find all the candy. Side dishes, and then some little power bars just in case. So we have all this type of food. Some of it is dehydrated, and so we have to hydrate it, fill it up with water. Some of it is all ready-made, and then all we have to do is heat it up. So something like this, I'm pulling out barbecued beef brisket. Pretty yummy. Some questions I had were about what do you do in your free time, and you can't help but want to just come to the cupola and look outside as much as you can. And a lot of folks, I play this game with myself about where we're flying over the earth.
Infographic. Take the nose knows. Dogs are famous for being super sniffers. Their sense of smell is many times stronger than ours. Now, some dogs are being trained to use their noses to help protect people from an illness called COVID-19. When a person has COVID-19, his or her body makes certain chemicals. These chemicals are in the person's sweat and spit. Recently, scientists in several countries have been teaching dogs to sniff out these chemicals. Scientists plan to put the dogs on duty in public places like airports. The dogs may help identify people who have COVID-19. even if those people don't feel sick. Then those people can stay away from others to avoid spreading the disease. Your turn. Can you think of other ways a dog can use its powerful nose to help humans? Sticky situation. Text trouble. Drew is hanging out at his friend Danny's house. When Danny leaves the room, a text pops up on his phone. It has Drew's name in it. Drew knows he shouldn't read someone else's texts, but he's curious about the message. What should Drew do?